As Musa's water business continued to grow, the village market became busier than ever. Every morning, long lines formed beside his carts. Families waited patiently with buckets and containers, grateful for clean water at fair prices. But while the villagers celebrated Musa's success, others watched with jealousy. At the far end of the market stood Bako, a wealthy trader who had once controlled most of the water business. He watched silently as people gathered around Musa, and deep inside him, anger began to grow. Because the people no longer feared wealth, they trusted kindness instead. The warning. One evening after a long day of deliveries, Musa returned to his water station. But the moment he arrived, he stopped. Several containers had been thrown onto the ground. One of the cart wheels had been smashed. Water slowly leaked into the dusty earth. Nearby villagers whispered nervously as Musa walked closer. Then he noticed words carved into the wooden cart. "Leave the market." For a moment, silence filled the air. His workers looked frightened, but Musa calmly lifted one of the fallen containers and placed it back upright. Fear had followed him before, and he had already learned how to survive it. The next afternoon, a stranger dressed in expensive robes approached Musa privately. The man carried a small bag heavy with coins. He offered Musa a simple deal: leave the water business and disappear quietly. For a moment, Musa stared at the money. It was enough to change his life forever. But then he remembered the thirsty families, the long walks for water, the struggle he once lived through himself. So Musa pushed the bag away, because some things were worth more than money. Weeks passed, and then the rain stopped. The river began shrinking beneath the burning sun. Day after day, the water levels dropped lower. Fear slowly spread across the village. Women carried empty buckets. Farmers stared helplessly at dry land. Children searched for water where streams once flowed. Even Musa stood quietly beside the cracked riverbank, knowing difficult days were coming. But he also knew something else. Panic could destroy a village faster than drought. That evening, Musa gathered his workers beside the water carts. The drought had made water more valuable than ever. Some of the workers suggested raising prices. After all, desperate people would pay anything. But Musa refused, because he remembered what it felt like to suffer with nothing. Water was life, and life was not something to exploit. That night, under the warm glow of lanterns, Musa made a choice that would define the kind of man he truly. As the drought continued, Musa's kindness spread throughout Kitala. Families who had little money still received water. Elderly villagers no longer walked long distances carrying heavy containers. For the first time in years, many people felt hope during hardship. And slowly, the way people saw Musa began to change. He was no longer remembered as the beggar beneath the tree. Now he was the man who helped the village survive. And for the first time in a long time, Musa felt respected. But while the village praised Musa, Bako's anger only grew stronger. Inside his trading shop, frustration consumed him. He could not understand why the people admired a man who gave more than he took. To Bako, kindness was weakness. But to the villagers, kindness had become power. And deep down, Bako feared something more dangerous than losing money. He feared losing control. The tension between Musa and Bako finally exploded in the center of the market. Villagers gathered as the two men stood face to face. Bako accused Musa of pretending to be a hero, but Musa remained calm. He spoke not with anger, but with conviction. He believed people deserved fairness. He believed every person deserved a chance. And as the crowd listened, something important became clear. The villagers no longer followed Bako because of fear. They followed Musa because of trust. Then one evening, the sky finally changed. Dark clouds rolled across the horizon. Thunder echoed through the land. And suddenly, rain poured onto the dry earth once again. The village erupted with joy. Children danced through puddles. Families laughed beneath the falling rain. And Musa stood quietly in the middle of it all, letting the water fall across his face. Not because he had become rich, but because he had become something far greater, a man that people could depend on. As the rain continued to fall, the old woman appeared beside him once more, and softly she reminded him, "True wealth is measured not by what a man keeps, but by the lives he helps restore." But peace would not last forever, because beyond the village, a larger world was waiting for Musa, a world filled with opportunity, power, and betrayal. And soon Musa would face his greatest challenge yet. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe, share, and go ahead and leave your thoughts in the comments for part 3 of this story. Thank you.